Welcome, FinTech Talkers, to another edition of the FinTech Talk Show, recorded live at Money 2020 in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Patty. My guest today is Shri Santhanam. He's the EVP and GM of software platforms and AI products at Experian. Shri leads the business focused on using Experian's data to provide software solutions, advanced analytics, machine learning, and AI-driven solutions, the flavor of the time, to clients, experienced clients, to help them make sense faster and better business decisions. Welcome, Shri, to the FinTech Talk Show.
Thank you for having me, Patty.
Great. So before we get into Experian AI solutions, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Shri?
Sure. I'm an engineer by education and spent a significant portion of my career bringing Silicon Valley-style AI, tech, data, and analytics-driven solutions to large companies. Initially, I focused a lot on retail, but after the crisis, saw a huge opportunity in financial services, and a big part of the work I've done in my career is bringing AI, tech, analytics, and data-driven solutions to large financial institutions. I'm also personally very passionate about financial inclusion. And so in 2019, when the leadership at Experian reached out to me and asked me to come and play a role in Experian's journey, I was very, very excited. Experian, many of you might know as a data company, but over the last decade, we've been making a number of investments to really go on a journey to go from a traditional credit bureau to a data-backed platform company. We see a revolution in financial services, and probably the largest one in its history. And our mission at Experian is to help power the digital revolution that we're seeing in financial services.
Great. And a few things on your background I'd love to kind of touch on maybe later in the show, especially around financial inclusion. And the engineering background, that's very important that you bring that, right? I think in financial services, I've seen that folks with the engineering background that bring that kind of discipline into business usually do well, like how they do in startups, where you see startup leaders mostly coming from an engineering background. So it's great that Experian's doing that. And thanks for letting us know about the business you're running. You're launching something at Money 2020, Shri, so tell us about that.
Very happy to. There's been a lot of talk about generative AI, and many see it as a technology which will have quite a profound effect on financial services and other industries, probably in line with what the mobile phones or even the internet might have. But there's also been hype around this, and many will say in the last year the hype's waning. For us, we see generative AI as a very important and powerful tool in amplifying the impact of our data, and we're excited to launch the Experian Assistant, which is a generative AI-powered assistant to help our customers navigate our data and everything you do with it. You can think about the Experian Assistant as having one of our foremost experts in data and analytics at your disposal 24/7, helping answer questions for you about our data, helping advise you on how to carry out analytics. And we're very excited to launch it here at Money 2020.
Well, congratulations. That sounds very exciting. And in terms of the personas or the profiles you're targeting with the Experian Assistant, who would be the typical user and what will they use it for?
Our broad scope of users is basically anyone who uses and operates our data. To start with, our most immediate focus is data scientists and data analysts who use our data. The problem they often face is using data, credit data, regulated data requires a deep and specific understanding of several hundreds of columns of data, several hundreds of thousands of rows of data, and knowing the specific use of that data in regulated industries, what you can do with it, what you cannot, where it's advantageous to use it. The industry solves this now by relying on a small number of experts. These experts reside at Experian and within many of our clients as they use and get accustomed to credit data. But what we want to do is we want to democratize the use of our data. And so the Experian Assistant captures this expertise and really helps accelerate how data scientists carry out modeling, how they do exploratory analytics with our data. Some of the early results we're seeing is data scientists using the Experian Assistant are able to build models 75% faster than they would without the assistant. And they're also able to connect, join, and use data with the higher levels of accuracy and reliability.
Oh, that's great. And it's almost like a co-pilot, and maybe it's more than a co-pilot, like the programming co-pilot or the GitHub co-pilot like Microsoft has. And I've seen some stats like that increases productivity of a developer by 30 or more percent aggregately. And looks like this is almost a data co-pilot targeted at data science. And it could be more, it could be an agent and have more autonomous capabilities. But do you see it as that? It's almost like a data co-pilot?
That's a great question. That is one aspect of what it does. To double-click on how the Experian Assistant works, the Experian Assistant is actually a collection of agents, and we expect this to evolve over time. You can think about it as when you ask a question, you have a concierge agent which decides what topic, what area your question is, and then it routes it to an internal expert who is an agent which and having expertise in that area. So if you ask a question related to data or credit data, it routes it to the credit data expert which provides the answer to that question and routes it back to the concierge. As of now, we have a set of experts around our credit data, how we use our data and analytics, and an expert around some of the modeling. And over time, we expect to have more experts supporting the Experian Assistant in the background and expand to a broader set of use cases. We also expect to have some of these experts carry out tasks on behalf of the user as agents. And this might be deploying a model into production. It might be creating regulatory documentation. So we're quite excited about the possibility and the potential here, and this is just the starting point.
That's great. And I like to kind of see the evolution in broad terms that AI, first it was a chatbot, and then you have co-pilots, and then you have agents which are more autonomous. And looks like you're already in that kind of advanced maturity phase. Do you see yourself or the Experian Assistant as based on an agentic architecture?
Yes, absolutely. The Experian Assistant is based on an agentic architecture, and we have a number of technical capabilities which the agents will be able to carry out. What Experian is very focused on is data privacy, consumer privacy, and compliance against regulation. So this is a paramount consideration for us. So all of our work with agentic architectures involve careful reviews and understanding on what we can and cannot do within the regulatory environment which we operate in. And so we expect the Experian Assistant to evolve with a set of tasks and capabilities. But what the guiding principle is largely going to be what regulatory environment and compliance safely allow for.
That's an interesting point, because one of the things I see, especially when banks or other enterprises are using LLMs, they often worry about the thing that you just said around privacy, or how their data might be used for other purposes besides what they are using it for. So it looks like Experian Assistant kind of solves to that a little bit, right? In terms of providing a safe sandbox or within the or adhering to the privacy and the regulatory issues that may be associated with the data.
You're spot on, and we think that's a big differentiator in how we're bringing out this product. There's obviously a number of chatbots, and it's also in some ways pretty trivial to try and use tools like ChatGPT to answer similar questions. What we believe is a key differentiator in what we're bringing to the table is the governance, the risk, and the regulatory framework around this, and we believe we're bringing it in a very responsible way. We have techniques in our Experian Assistant to ensure very high fidelity and quality of answers in a specific set of skills, which goes through extensive testing before we actually release it to even our internal users or customers. And this is quite critical in regulated environments. And so the level of rigor in testing, fidelity, skills, and the techniques that we use on top of that, like few-shot prompting, retrieval augmented generation, and the right architectures, play a very significant role in achieving that level of quality and precision.
Yeah, you brought up RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, and the multi-shot prompting. So another issue besides that privacy and regulatory compliance of using LLMs or large models in enterprises is just the know-how, or just the ability to integrate enterprise data with the power of the LLM. So does the Experian Assistant help an enterprise with that problem as well?
That's a great question. Right now, the Experian Assistant is knowledgeable about all of Experian's credit data. And as we've done that, we realize we've created a differentiated set of capabilities on really creating a data expert which can answer precise questions at a high quality. This is an important capability which we expect to extend not just to our data sets, but also to helping our clients navigate their own data. And we're starting to see a lot of interest from our clients with this capability. We have products like the Ascend Sandbox where we're stewards of our client data. And one of the things we're going to be doing is extending this regulated, responsible knowledge and know-how around our data and how to use it to some of our clients' data sets as well.
That's great. So the chief data officers, and now they have chief AI officers at banks and or enterprises, and everyone working with data and Gen AI and AI should take note. You build something great here, and Experian has a lot of data background. And especially with the privacy and the regulatory kind of sandbox or a compliant framework, this is something that everyone related to data at the banks and the enterprises should take a close look at.
Indeed, and we think this has the potential to more fundamentally democratize data use and analytics in a way which we haven't seen before, and we're very excited to be at the forefront of paving this way to democratize the use of data.
Gotcha. Kind of just stepping back a little bit, Shri, we talked about like they can use your product to build models. Where do you see Gen AI being most applied in financial services? Is it more credit or risk, or even some kind of talk about in marketing and customer servicing, or markets, right? I met a startup yesterday that's doing a lot of kind of Gen AI or analyzing market data and things like that. Where do you see from the lens or from the vantage point you have are some of the biggest heavy hitters or biggest use cases of Gen AI in financial services?
You've touched on quite a few of them, Patty. Coding and engineering, customer service, the use, and what we're starting to see is the use of just in concision and use cases like product and analytics. But taking a step back, I think a good parallel in history to see how this might play out is to see how the internet started and the impact it's had. In the early days of the internet, the early 90s, the internet was largely used as a productivity tool for information exchange. Information exchange was cumbersome. You had traditional methods, or you had to send information by wire, and then suddenly the internet started to democratize that through email. In the early days, it mostly served as a productivity tool, but then it expanded and it started to slowly and steadily embed its way into how companies thought about their business models and evolved. I think we're starting to see a similar phenomenon with generative AI, where it'll start, and it's starting with serving as a very valuable productivity tool. And it's serving as a valuable productivity tool as we think about coding and engineering, as we think about the more basic aspects of knowledge work. So where you're looking to interpret basic policies, where you're looking to answer basic questions for customers based on unstructured data. But over time, I think it presents, like the internet, a very significant opportunity to amplify the impact of data with businesses and consumers. And for us, we see generative AI as a vehicle which is going to have a very significant positive impact in allowing us to amplify what data can do for our businesses and consumers, which is our core mission. And so we're leaning forward. We do think it's important to do this in a responsible way. And given the stewardship and the responsibility we have with consumers, we are focused on moving in an intentional way, briskly, but quite responsibly, and that's our differentiator.
No, that's great, and definitely that's the moment, and that has been a theme at this conference too. That this is the AI moment, and it could be transformational, like the internet example you gave. So it is to be seen how long it is here, but how long will we see some of the value generation? But great point. Thanks for sharing that, Shri. I think you talked a little bit in your introduction about your passions, especially around financial inclusion. You want to talk a little bit about that as to how you see that and what you're doing in that space?
Sure. So a bit of background just on financial inclusion for those who may not be familiar. There's about 250, 260 million adults in the U.S., and 28 to 30 million of them are what we call credit invisibles, which means with traditional underwriting methods and traditional data, these individuals are invisible to the financial system and don't have access to important financial vehicles like credit. For me, this is quite a personal connection, because growing up in India, where risk-based lending at the time I was growing up was fairly immature, entrepreneurs and certainly my family as well, we had very limited access to credit, and the only way you could get access to loans or capital was through collateral. And if we look at the U.S., the credit invisibles and the broad problem we have, if you use more sophisticated underwriting methods like machine learning and AI, and you bring in expanded data all allowed under FCRA, you're able to go from scoring about 81% of the population to 96% of the population. So that's a very significant number of individuals who suddenly start becoming visible to the financial system. Historically, if you look at how lending has evolved as well, with a couple of decades ago, lending was done with what I refer to largely as blunt instruments, scores, rules, strategies, which were fairly basic and uniform. And now we have machine learning and expanded data, which really allows you to take a hyper-personalized view. So Experian's on a mission and a journey to democratize some of these capabilities and bring these capabilities to financial institutions across the board, which creates a win-win. It helps financial institutions get more approvals and lower charge-offs, and it helps more consumers get access to credit. And that's a very important part of our mission. We see AI and generative AI playing a critical role in this democratization and consequently the financial inclusion which we bring here.
That's beautiful. Thanks for kind of sharing that. And I track kind of the benefits of inclusion across the board, not just in financial, but like saying things like education and personalized tutoring, for example, is a great example where AI can play a role in leveling the playing field. So I didn't think about it in the terms you described, but that's really great, and it's great that you see that, and Experian is pushing that vision into kind of the main street for financial inclusion. I think we'd like to talk more, Shri, but we have to get to other meetings. Thanks for coming today. But in closing, what would you like to share? Who are you trying to connect to with Experian Assistant or other priorities you have? Are you trying to connect with startups or other folks, partners, customers? And where can people find you, find more information about Experian Assistant?
Great. We're here at Money 2020, so stop by the Experian booth if you'd like to know more about the Experian Assistant. We'd love to hear any thoughts, reactions you have. Second point, I'd love for any of the financial institutions who think this is interesting and we can be helpful to stop by, and we're very happy to see if there's an opportunity for us to partner and engage. And finally, if you're a startup and if you have ideas on how we can engage, would love to hear from you as well. So it's an exciting time for us, and we're very intentional, excited, and focused on our mission here, and we'd love to partner with you and hear from you.
Great. And where can people connect with you on social media? Are you on X, LinkedIn, or all of the above?
I'm on LinkedIn. Great way to connect with me, and look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, that is Shri Santhanam, EVP
Welcome,
and GM
FinTech Talkers, to another edition of the FinTech Talk Show.
Thank you, Shri, for being on the
Recorded
FinTech
live at
Talk
Money
Show.
2020 in Las
Thank you
Vegas.
for having me,
I'm
Patty.
your host, Patty. My guest is Mike Conover, founder and CEO of Brightwave, an AI research assistant for financial professionals. Welcome, Mike, to the FinTech Talk Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Pleased to be here.
Great. Before we get into Brightwave and what you're building, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am Mike Conover. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brightwave. I have been building AI machine learning products for the better part of 15 years. Started my career at LinkedIn. Have gone through acquisitions, startups, big companies. Most recently was at Databricks prior to Brightwave, where I established the open source language model engineering practice. I created the first model to demonstrate that truly open source technologies could exhibit the kinds of behaviors we've come to expect from ChatGPT.
Wow, big names there, Mike. LinkedIn, Databricks, and Databricks CEO was here last year, I think, Money 20. I keep confusing whether it was Money 20 or FinTech Meetup, but
their conference was actually in the same venue as well.
That's right.
That's right. Internal conference.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ali, right?
Yeah.
He was there, so that's great. And Databricks obviously has a lot of AI brain power.
Yeah.
So not surprising, you founded an AI company. So what is Brightwave, and who typically are you targeting for use?
Yeah, so you think about the job of an active asset manager. So think of somebody like an analyst at a long-short hedge fund, or a portfolio manager at a mutual fund, folks in investment banking. One of the core jobs of that job family is to know something about the market that nobody else has seen in order to identify a mispriced asset. And it's not clear that is a task that's well suited to human intellect or attention span. So if you think about the body of information that is relevant to an investment decision, it very readily exceeds the limits of what a person is able to keep in mind simultaneously. So think about the millions of pages of content to include SEC filings, earnings call transcripts, sell-side analysis, industry trends reports, breaking news, patents, podcast transcripts, the congressional record. It outstrips the limits of human cognitive capacity. And what we are building is a system that structures that information and makes it available to a reasoning engine such that you are able to autonomously perform investment research on any subject. Some of the examples of the kinds of work people do with Brightwave, everything from question answering and fact finding to benchmarking of public equities, private equity due diligence. If you have documents in a deal room and you're trying to understand, show me all of the IP exposure that this entity has in its sort of disclosures. There's across the spectrum of financial services, we're seeing very brisk traction and eager interest to use this technology to accelerate workflows.
That's great. It's really a top use case of AI because, like you kind of elaborated, there's so much information that goes into asset pricing, and it's just not kind of just a simple valuation. And AI is a perfect candidate for that.
Yep.
And I'm tracking some of the other developments. I know Morgan Stanley talks about it, and they built in kind of more for wealth management, but you're in kind of the same plane in some ways, right? Because I think that's more of an advisor productivity tool, helping an advisor manage its relationship, manage investments and stuff. But you're targeting more the asset managers, the hedge fund managers, and others.
And I think we have applicability. We have wealth managers on the platform as it happens. It's not our core market, but I think the problem that Morgan Stanley has identified is very similar to the one that we see in the market, and the extent of the information that it is relevant to an investment decision or a recommendation just exceeds a person's ability to keep it in mind. Now, I think what you see from a lot of these kinds of deployments is a chat-first type of user experience, and we are building a much more comprehensive data product. So if you think about Amazon.com, everything that you see when you visit Amazon is powered by a machine learning model. All of the recommendations, all of the search suggestions, all of its the intent understanding that goes into deciding what your purchasing intention is, how the comments are ranked and sorted. It is fundamentally a machine learning product that manifests the recommendations through a complex user interface or a sophisticated user interface. With Brightwave, we are building a tool, a workflow-oriented tool for finance professionals, and chat is a piece of that. But really, our assessment, and this is hundreds of hours of user research have gone into this, is that chat is not enough for finance.
Interesting, very interesting. And just quickly on Morgan Stanley, I think I attended the OpenAI session yesterday. I think their CFO was there, and she was given a shout out and kind of called it out as a strategic kind of OpenAI initiative. So what you're doing at Brightwave is up there in terms of an AI use case, a real value use case.
The demand that we have seen across financial services is extraordinary. I think reflecting back a year ago, it was unclear that institutional asset managers would have such vigorous enthusiasm for this class of technologies. Generally, might be more inclined to be on the more risk-averse side. We have seen institutions of every color and stripe demonstrating an interest and appetite for this technology.
Gotcha. And I want to get into maybe peel the onion a little bit, but before that, kind of in terms of, I think, Morgan Stanley, for example, not to kind of belabor Morgan Stanley's work,
sure.
But they're using, obviously, GPT-4, but I'm thinking you're using your own models and stuff, so I want to get into that without getting into too much of details. But before that, you made a point around chat's not sufficient, right? So that I want to get into that a little bit. The framework or the kind of the spectrum that I see in AI, right? So chatbots kind of at the lowest level. Then you have co-pilots, which is an assistant, and then you have agents or agentic architecture and autonomous and stuff like that. So first of all, kind of talk a little bit about how you see that when you say chat's not enough from financial services. Do you see we have to just have these smart agents or agents doing most of the work? And where are you in that spectrum if we use this spectrum?
Yeah, so we build what I would call semi-autonomous reasoning. So it is an open question as to whether fully autonomous LLMs that have access to tools and code execution, left to their own devices and without structure around how you plan and approach goals produce useful work product. O1 is a gesture in this direction. It is limited in some important ways. I do think that fully autonomous, open-ended reasoning is in the limit where this technology goes. But we think about defining workflows that mimic the kinds of decisions a human would make, where there are key points of judgment. And what we are not doing is training a single monolithic model that solves all of these problems simultaneously. We think that it is more effective to design systems of machine learning subsystems. So if you think about, like a parallel would be like the Facebook newsfeed. Certainly it's the case that they have a connection strength score that feeds into the algorithm that determines what you see when you load Facebook.com. That's a machine learning model that's consuming the outputs of another machine learning model. And what we are doing is organizing flows of information through a sequence of machine learning models, each of which makes a judgment about what should happen next and then delegates work to other subsystems. And by being a little more opinionated about what kinds of work we're trying to accomplish, we get much higher fidelity end results out of the other end of the system.
Very fascinating. And you got into it a little bit in the details of how you're chaining the different machine learning models. Get into that a little bit in details. Are you using out-of-box LLMs, right? GPTs, GPT-4 or Anthropic or others, or have you built your own models? Get into a little bit of the details.
So we train and operate our own models. I will be a little circumspect in describing how the magic happens, but I'll say that the team has decades of machine learning experience. So I've been building in this space for more than 15 years. My co-founder, former CTO of a federally regulated derivatives exchange and clearinghouse, his first deep learning patent was filed in 2018. We have NeurIPS published research engineers, so NeurIPS being the top AI venue in the world. NeurIPS published research engineers on the team. It's a very, very experienced engineering team with a specialization in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And so our operating principle is that you want to choose the right tool for the job. And so sometimes that means building our own models. Sometimes that means using other technologies. And we are operating in a market where it could be garden gnomes. The buyer doesn't care how it happens, insofar as it is correct and relevant every time.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, we talked about the product. Where are you in the business cycle? You're a startup. What stage are you? What's some of your next milestones?
So we're pleased to announce at Money 2020 that we have closed a $15 million fundraising round.
Wow.
Yeah, preempted by Decibel Partners, our seed investor. That brings our total funding in the past 17 months to $21 million.
Great. Congratulations.
Why, thank you. It's tremendous. It's happened very quickly. We've seen brisk interest and adoption from across financial services. We have, since we announced the seed, increased revenue by more than 400%, and are excited to use this capital to continue to expand the team and procure partnerships that provide us access to data to increase the power of the tool that we've built, and continue to fund the compute that goes into building our knowledge graph and reasoning engine.
Yeah. And this is a big use case, as we talked about, the financial analysis and helping with the investments. But are you staying focused on that, or are you planning maybe in the future to expand into others?
Oh, brother, we could spend a decade building in finance. It is a deep problem, and I like hard problems. Mm-hmm. It's a huge market. We are laser focused on building something that is useful for finance professionals, and we could spend the next 10 years executing against that vision.
Great. No, that's awesome. How has Money 2020 been this year?
It's fabulous. What a great venue. A coming together of interesting people doing interesting work. We're happy to be here. We've got our entire commercial team is here, including folks from UBS and McKinsey and Goldman Sachs. We've got a deep background in traditional finance on the commercial side of the house, and it's a lot of familiar faces here at Money 2020.
And I have a broad audience, Mike, in international as well, but largely domestic, startups, banks, large institutions, some maybe asset managers and hedge funds too. So who are you trying to connect, and how should they get in touch with you, social media and other things?
Yeah, so we're at brightwave.io online, and brightwave.io on Twitter and LinkedIn. Would love to hear from anybody who has an interest or use case for a tool like this. We are growing and building just as fast as we can, and we love meeting new people.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for being on the FinTech Talk Show.
I appreciate it so much, Patty.
Thanks.